Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to be coding Minesweeper in Java. So here you can see we have the game. And for those of you who don't know how the game works, we have 8 rows and 8 columns. So in total, we have 64 tiles. And in 10 of those tiles, we have mines. So the goal of the game is to click through every single tile while avoiding the 10 mines. And it doesn't have to be 10 mines, but you can change the number if you like. But in this case, we have 10 mines, and if I click on a tile, 3 things could happen. I click on a mine, game over, or I click on a tile that is next to a mine. So for instance, if I click on this tile, this indicates that within 1 unit away, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in one of these 8 tiles that are 1 unit away from this one, 3 of them are mines. And if I click on another tile, let's say this one, this means that we have 1 tile. In one of these 8 tiles, we have 1 tile that has a mine. Now, if you click on a tile that does not have a number, it will expand outwards. So for instance, let's try this one or this one. You can see it will expand outwards and open up all the tiles until you get numbers. And you can also right click on a tile and this will place a flag there. When you place the flag, you're indicating that there's a mine there. So when you click on that tile, it won't open the tile and trigger the mine. So here we have a mine. So if I place a flag here and I click on it, nothing happens. I can also undo this by right clicking again. And now if I click on this, you can see game over because I triggered a mine. Alright, so that's how the game works. And before we start coding, I just want to quickly mention that I'm working on a new tutorial series in Java. So currently I'm working on Blackjack and Minesweeper, but on my channel you'll find tutorials on tic-tac-toe and snake. And I also already have tutorials in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I have a tutorial on how to make doodle jump, breakout, Flappy Bird, Space Invaders, Wordle, 2048. I also have a tutorial on Minesweeper, Candy Crush, and so on. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on new game programming tutorials. And you can also find this list on kenyipcoding.com. And I'll be using Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. Now, if you want to learn how to set up Java with Visual Studio Code, I have a video tutorial on that and I'll link it in the video description below. Alright, let's begin. So let's press Ctrl-Shift-P, Java create Java project, no build tools. And for my project location, I'm just going to select desktop. And for the name of the project, I'm going to call this Minesweeper. And as you can see, we have our project folder. And within the project folder, we have this source folder. Click on that, and we have our app.java file. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this line. And then I'm going to type Minesweeper. Minesweeper is equal to new Minesweeper. And then what we're going to do is within our source folder, I'm going to right click, new file, and type in minesweeper.java. Okay, so now we have a Minesweeper class, and all of the coding will be in this file. So we don't need this anymore, and let's collapse this. Alright, cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is import a few things. So let's import java.awt.asterisk, import java.awt.event.asterisk, import java.util.arraylist, import java.util.random, import javax.swing.asterisk. So we're going to use the array list to store all the tiles with the mines, and we are going to use this random library to place mines in random tiles. Alright, let's create a constructor. So Minesweeper. And the first thing we need to do is create the game window. So to do that, I'm going to type jframe. Frame is equal to new jframe. And within here, we can specify a title. So I'm going to call the title of our window Minesweeper. And then within our constructor, I'm going to do a few things with the frame. So frame.setVisible, I'm going to set this to true so that we can see the window. Oh, don't forget the semicolon here. And for our frame, we need to specify a size, and that is the width and height. So over here, I'm going to specify a few variables. One of them is the tile size. So each tile is going to be 70 pixels by 70 pixels. And we need to specify a number of rows and columns. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to do 8 by 8, but you can change these numbers however you like. So num rows is equal to 8, and num columns, in this case, since I'm making the board a square, I'm just going to set it equal to num rows. And then the board width is going to be the number of columns times tile size. So if each tile is 70 by 70 and we have 8 columns, then the width is going to be 8 times 70, which is 560. So in total, this is 560 pixels. And then we need to do the same for board height, and that is the number of rows times tile size. So within here, I'm going to do frame.setSize to board width and board height. And then frame.setLocation relative to null. So this will open the window at the center of our screen. Frame.setResizable, we're going to set this to false. Frame.setDefault close operation. This will be jframe.exit on close. So basically, when you press on the X button on the window, it will terminate the program. And then frame.setLayout new border layout. Alright, so that's all we have for our window. So now if I run our program, you can see we have our window right here. Alright, now the next thing we need is a J panel and a J label. So the first panel I'm going to place is for the text, where it says Minesweeper and the number of mines that we have in our game. So for the text, I need a J label. Text label is equal to new J label. And then I'm going to need a panel for this label. So J panel, text panel is equal to new J panel. And then within our constructor, let's set some properties. So for the text label, I'm going to set the font to new font Arial font.bold, and we are going to make the font size 25. Next, we are going to center our text so that it doesn't start from the left. So text label dot set horizontal alignment J label dot center. For now, let's just set the text to Minesweeper. So text label dot set text Minesweeper. And then I'm going to do text label dot set opaque and set this to true. Now for our text panel, I'm going to set layout to new border layout. And then I'm going to take the text label and add it to the text panel. So text panel dot add text label. And then I need to take the panel and add it to the window. So frame dot add text panel. Alright, now let's run our program. And as you can see, we have our text panel inside our frame. And I want to move this up so that it sticks to the top of the frame. So to do that, over here, I'm going to add another parameter, border layout dot north. All right, now let's run our program. And now, as you can see, we have our panel on top. All right, now that we have a text label and a text panel for our game, let's also add another panel for our board. So jPanel, board panel is equal to new jPanel. And then within our constructor, I'm going to do board panel dot set layout, new grid layout, and we are going to make this the number of rows by the number of columns. Number of columns. So in this case, we are going to make it 8 by 8. And then we are going to take the board panel and add it to our frame. All right, now let's run our program. And you don't really see the board panel right now, but we can make it visible by adding a color to the background. So we can do board panel dot set background, and we can make it color dot green for now. All right, so let's run our program. And now you can see this green part is our board panel. For now, we don't need the color, so I'm just going to comment the code out. So let's just comment this out. All right, so now we have our text panel and our board panel. Now within our board panel, we have a grid that is 8 by 8. So we need to fill the grid, and we are going to fill the grid with clickable buttons. Now we could use a J button, but instead of doing that, I'm going to define a new class that will inherit the J button. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want the properties of a J button, but we want to add two more things, and that is the row number and the column number. Because when we click on the button, we want to know where that button is within our grid. So let's create a new class. We're going to call it MineTile, and it's going to inherit, so extends JButton. And then within here, we are going to create two member variables, so the row number, R, and the column number, C. And then let's create a constructor. So MineTile, int R, int C, oops. And within our constructor, we are just going to pass in the row and column numbers and assign them to the member variables. So this.r is equal to R. This.c is equal to C. Okay? Alright, so now we have our MineTile defined. So within our constructor, let's fill our grid with MineTiles. So for int R equals 0, R less than num rows, R++. For int C equals 0, C less than num columns, C++. We are going to create a MineTile. So MineTile, tile is equal to new MineTile, RC. And what we need is a 2D array to store each MineTile so that we know where each tile is. And so over here, I'm going to create a 2D array of MineTiles. So MineTile, I'm going to call it board, and this is going to be a new MineTile. And we're going to make it number of rows by the number of columns. And then back here, I'm going to set board of RC equal to that tile. So now within our 2D array, we have a reference to the tiles that we create. Now let's set some properties to our tile. So tile.setFocusable. I'm going to set this to false. Tile.setMargin. New insets 0, 0, 0, 0. And within our tiles, we have a text, and this text could be the number, or it could be the bomb emoji that we will be using for the mines, or it could be the flag emoji. So I'm going to do tile.setFont, new font, Arial, and this is important here. We want to specify Unicode MS so that we can display our emojis. And then we're going to do font.plain, and let's make the font size 45. And for now, I'm just going to do tile.setText, and let's just put 1. Alright, and then now the last thing we need to do is add this tile to the board panel. So board panel.add tile. Alright, now let's run our program. And as you can see, we have a board of 8 rows and 8 columns. So in total, we have 64 buttons, and they are clickable. And each one has the text 1 on it. And we can also add emojis. So if you're on Windows, like I am, if you press the window key and dot at the same time, you can open up the emoji picker. So here, let's say if I put the bomb emoji for the mine, and let's run a program. And there's a chance that you might get this issue because we are creating 64 buttons, which is a lot. So your program, it might not load all the buttons in time before it opens the window. And this might not happen for you, but I guess it's happening for me because I am recording right now. So let's fix that. So what we're going to do is over here, frame.setVisible, I'm going to take this line and I'm going to comment it out. And then down here, I'm going to place frame.setVisible. So basically, we only want to set the frame visible after we've loaded all our components. Alright, now let's run our program and see if there's a difference. And here you go. We have our 8x8 board of mine tiles. And if I refresh, you can see it's going to load the frame only after we've added all our components. Alright, so let's comment this out. And here you can see we have our empty tiles. Now, the next thing we need to do is set some mines. So let's create a function for that. So for the mines, I'm going to create an array list of mine tiles. And I'm going to call this mine list. And then in our constructor, down here, I'm going to call a setMines function. So let's define that here. And over here, I'm going to create an array list for the mine list. So mine list is equal to new array list of mine tiles. And just for the sake of testing our code, I'm just going to statically place 5 mines. So let's do minelist.add. And let's just randomly select 2 values, R and C. So I'm just going to do board of 2, 2. So whichever mine tile that is. Minelist.add board of 2, 3. Minelist.add board of 5, 6. Minelist.add board of 3, 4. Minelist.add board of 1, 1. Alright, so for the rows and columns, there'll be 2, 2, 2, 3, 5, 6, 3, 4, and 1, 1. Alright, so just as a recap on how the grid works, we have a 2D array, and this is just a representation on the board. We have indices from 0 to 7, and 0 to 7 because it is 8 by 8. And so this here is the row number, and this right here is the column number. So board RC would be how we get any of these tiles. So if I do board 1-1, it will refer to this tile. And board 6-5 would be this one over here. This one would be board 2-2, board 2-3, and board 3-4. Okay, so it's the row first and then the column. Alright, so now that we've set the mines, let's add some click handler for the buttons. So over here, I'm going to add a mouse listener. So it's going to listen for mouse clicks. So let's do tile.add mouse listener. And we're going to pass in new mouse adapter. And let's add a semicolon here. And within the mouse adapter, we need to override one method, and that is the mouse pressed. So I'm going to do override public void mouse pressed, and it's going to take in a mouse event E. And the first thing we need to do is get the tile that was clicked on. So mine tile is equal to E dot get source. And over here you can see we're getting an error. So what we need to do is just cast it to mine tile. And for this game, when we click on a tile, we need to distinguish whether it's a left click or a right click. And if it's a left click, we are opening the tile. And if it's a right click, we are setting the flag. So we need to make that check. So this is left click. If e.getButton is equal to mouse event dot button 1. So button 1 is the left click. Button 2 would be the scroll wheel between the left and right clicks. And button 3 would be the right click. So let's just start with the left click, which is button 1. We are going to make a check. If tile.getText is equal to empty, this means we haven't opened it. So by default, all the tiles don't have any text on them. And if the tile is empty, we also want to check to see if it's in the mine list. So if mine list.contains tile, then this is essentially game over. So I'm just going to review all the mines. So let's create a function called review mines. So down here, let's define a function called review mines. And basically, all we need to do is iterate through the array list containing all the tiles with mines in them, and just set the text to be the bomb emoji. So for int I equals 0, I less than mine list dot size I plus plus, mine tile is equal to mine list dot get I. And here we're just going to do tile.setText, and we're going to make it the bomb emoji. Alright, now let's run our program. So you can see here, 2, 2, so row number 2 and column number 2 contains a mine. So 0, 1, 2. And then 0, 1, 2. So it's this one over here. If I click on this, it should trigger reveal mines. And there you go. Alright, so now what we need to do is take care of the other two cases. So if I click on a tile that does not have a mine, it should either show a number indicating how many mines are nearby within one tile away. So within these 8 tiles, this one should show the number 2. So we need to indicate a tile clicked whenever we click on a button. And to do that, we are going to disable the button so that the player cannot click on the same tile again. Alright, so over here, I'm going to add an else statement, and we are going to check for mines. So check mine, tile.r, tile.c. So we are going to create a function that will take in the row and column numbers and check to see how many mines are nearby. So over here, let's create another function, check mine. And we are going to get the tile at those coordinates. So mine tile is equal to board of RC. And let's disable the tile. So we are disabling the button so that we cannot click it again. So we're going to do tile.setEnabled. We're going to set this to false. So this is going to disable the button. And then I'm going to create a variable, minesFound, and set it to 0. And what we're going to do next is check our neighbors. So let's start with the top 3. So I'm going to do minesFound plus equal, and I'm going to create a new function to check to see if the neighbor is a mine. So this is going to be a function called countMine, and I'm going to take in a row and column. So let's define that here, countMine, and this is going to take in a row and column. And the first thing we need to check to see is whether or not the row and column are within bounds. So let's say I click on this one. We need to check the 8 neighbors. So there are 3 on top, 1 to the left, 1 to the right, and 3 below it. So we have 8 neighbors. But if I click on this one, we are missing some neighbors. In this case, we only have 3 neighbors instead of 8. Therefore, I need to check to make sure that we are not going out of bounds. So if the row and column coordinates are out of bounds, then we're just going to return 0 for countMines. So if r is less than 0, or r is greater than or equal to num rows, or c is less than 0, or c is greater than or equal to num columns, we're going to return 0. Otherwise, we are going to do the check. So this is going to be a valid tile. We are going to check if mineList.contains board RC. So if this tile is inside the mine list, then we are going to return 1. Otherwise, we are going to return 0. Alright, so those are the 3 cases. Either you're out of bounds, or you contain the mine, or you don't contain the mine. So up here, within countMine, I want to check the top 3. So we're going to go up 1 row, so r minus 1. And then we are going to go to the left, so this would be the top left, so c minus 1. So this is top left. And then we're going to do the same for the other 2 on the top row. So minesFound plus equal countMine r minus 1. And in this case, this is the one directly above, so this is just c. And then we want to check the top right. So minesFound countMine r minus 1 c plus 1. So this is top right. And then let's check left and right. So these are the ones in the same row, but one is to the left and the other is to the right. So same row, but c minus 1. Same row, and this one is to the right, so c plus 1. And then we need to check the bottom 3. So this is going to be the row after the current row, so r plus 1. And then we want to check the left side, so C minus 1. And then we want to check the one directly below this current tile, so R plus 1. Same column. And then finally, we want to check the one below and to the right. So C plus 1. Alright, so after we've checked all the mines within 8 tiles, we are going to check to see if this is greater than 0. So if it's greater than 0, that means we found some mines. So if mines found is greater than 0, I'm going to set the text equal to the number of mines found. So tile.set text integer dot toString mines found. Otherwise, we are going to do tile.set text empty string. Alright, now let's run our program. So we know over here there's a mine, so I'm just going to click on this. And there's a mine here as well, so this. You can see the 2 means there are 2 mines around it. This one, there are 2 mines around it as well. This one has only 1 mine. And if I click on this one, it's empty, and this one is also empty. And so it would be a waste of time just clicking on these empty tiles. So in a Minesweeper game, if I click on a tile that is empty, what it should do is it should ask its neighbors, the 8 tiles around it, it should call check mine on each tile and ask them to open up their tiles and check to see if they have 8 mines around them. And the way we're going to do this is recursion. Alright, so just for a quick explanation on how the recursion works, let's say I click on this button, and it turns out this has no mines nearby, so it will check, and it will determine that there are 0 mines nearby. So what it's going to do is mark it as an empty string, and then it will do the recursive call on its 8 neighbors. So it's going to tell this one to check mine, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And so let's say it calls this one to check mine, and it also happens to be an empty tile. So now it's going to repeat the process. It's going to tell this one to check mine, and this one, and so on, and then it's also going to call this one. So here you can see we have a problem, because it's telling this one to check mine because it is a neighbor. But this one has already called check mine because it is the one that told this one to check mine. So we are going to end up with an infinite loop of this one telling this one to check mine, and then it will check its neighbors, and then this just happens to be a neighbor, so it's going to tell this one to check mine, which will then tell this one to check mine, and it'll repeat the process and tell this one to check mine. So to avoid this, we have a base case. And the base case is basically when should we stop the recursive function calls. And for our mine tile, whenever we click on a tile, we essentially disable it so that we don't click on it again. So what we're going to do is when we make the recursive call, we are going to check to see if the mine tile has been clicked on. So if is enabled is set to false, then we won't proceed with the function and we're just going to return. So if this function call returns, that means it won't have a chance to call check mine on this neighbor. So if there are no mines found, we are going to set an empty string as the text, and then we are going to call check mine on the neighbors. So once again, the neighbors are the 8 tiles that surround this current tile. So we're going to start with the top 3 and just call check mine R-1, C-1. And this is the top left. And then we're going to call check mine on the one directly above. So R-1, same column. So this is top. Check mine R-1. So this is top right. So C+1. And then we are going to check left and right. So check mine, same row, but to the left, so column -1. Check mine, same row, but column is to the right. And then we're going to check for the bottom 3. So R plus 1, and this is the bottom left, so C minus 1. R plus 1, same column, so this is directly below it. And then R plus 1, bottom right, so C plus 1. And over here, we need to add a base case. So the first base case would be very similar to our count mine, and that is we need to check to see if the rows and columns are within the boundaries of the board. So I'm just going to copy and paste this and place it over here. And instead of returning 0, we are just going to return. Okay, so if it's out of bounds, we exit the function immediately. And if we exit the function immediately, we never make these check mine recursive function calls. And so if it's within the boundaries, we are going to get the tile and we're going to add another base case. And so if not tile dot is enabled, this means it has been clicked on, we are going to return. So if it has not been clicked on, we are going to set enable to false and disable the button. Alright, now let's run our program. Alright, now if I click on this tile, we know there's a number, and there's a number here. And if I click on this, it will expand and open up and ask each tile around it to check its neighbors. Okay? And then I can go around like so. And here we can isolate these bombs. So now what we need to do is add a feature where if I right click, it will set a flag or take away the flag. So over here, I'm going to add another condition. Else, if e.getButton is equal to mouse event dot button 3. So this is the right click. Let's just make a note of that. So here, we are going to check if tile.getText is equal to an empty string. So if it's an empty string, I'm going to do tile.setText to the flag emoji. And we also want to be able to undo the flag. So else if tile.getText is equal to the flag emoji, we are going to do tile.setText and make it an empty string. Alright, now let's run our program. Alright, now if I right click on a tile, I set a flag. And if I right click on the same tile, I remove the flag. And I can click to open up. And if I right click on this, it won't work because it's not an empty text because there's already a number in here. But there is an issue, and that is I can right click on these. And over here, we should add a check. So and tile.is enabled. So we only want to do this if the button has not been clicked on. Alright, so now if I add some flags, I can remove them. And if I open up the tiles, it will get rid of the flags. And if I try to place a flag here, it will not work. Okay? And I can also place flags here. And if I click on this, it shouldn't be able to open because over here, I made a check to see if the text is equal to empty. So we are only able to open up the tiles that don't have anything on them. So here, the text is flagged, so it won't trigger this if condition statement. Okay? And if I remove this, then I can open up that tile. Alright, now that we're able to handle left click and right click on the tiles, basically opening up the tile or setting a flag on the tile, what we need to do is handle the winning or losing case. So the winning case is basically if I click all the tiles except for the mines, I win. But if I click on a mine, then I lose, so game over. So I'm going to add a variable called tiles clicked. And this is going to keep track of how many tiles we've clicked on. So I'm just going to set this as 0 by default. And every time we click on a tile, I'm going to increment the tiles clicked. And then at the end, I'm going to make a check to see if we've clicked on all the tiles except the ones containing mines. And then let's create another variable called game over. So this is going to be a Boolean game over. When we click on a mine, we're going to set this to true. So by default, game over is going to be false. And the reason why we need this Boolean is if I run our program and I click on some tiles and then I click on a mine, we should set game over to true. And if game over is true, I shouldn't be able to click on this tile, right? But I can actually open these tiles. So let's start with the losing condition. So in review mines, over here, after we review all the mines, I'm going to set game over to true. And actually, let's update the text label to say game over. So text label dot set text game over. And then over here, when we click on a tile, we want to make a check. So if game over, we are just going to return. So if game over, we are not going to process all this logic, and it won't bother checking if we do a left click or a right click. It's just going to not respond to the click. So now if I run our program and I click on this tile and this one, and then I click on a tile with a mine, you can see game over, and I'm not able to click any more tiles. Alright, so that's the losing condition. Now let's take care of the winning condition, and that is we need to increment the number of tiles clicked every time we click on a tile. So over here, after we disable the tile, I'm going to do tiles clicked plus equal 1. And then over here, after we've set the value of the tile, I'm going to check if tiles clicked is equal to num rows times num columns. So this is 8 rows, 8 columns. So in total we have 64 tiles minus mine list.size. So this is going to minus 5 because currently we have 5 mines. So if this is the case, I'm also going to set game over to true. And we set game over to true because we don't want the player to click on any more tiles if they've clicked on all the ones except for the tiles containing mines. And similarly, we are going to set a message for the player letting them know that they won. So text label dot set text, and let's just make it mines cleared. Alright, so now let's run our program. And so we know these are mines, so I'm just going to play the game. Let's open this up. And you can see mines cleared and game over is true, so that means I cannot click on these tiles. Okay, so we have a fully functional game of Minesweeper, and I want to do one more thing, and that is I want to randomly place the mines. Because currently, if I run the program again, the mines are always going to be in the same 5 tiles. So we want to randomly place a number of mines in our board. So I'm going to create a variable called mine count. And I'm just going to make this 10. You can change the number if you like. You can make it 5 like we had originally, or you can add more mines. This is up to you. And then I'm going to create a random object. And then within our setMines function, I'm just going to comment this out. And I'm going to create a variable called mineLeft. I've set it to mine count. And then we are going to use a while loop. So while mineLeft is greater than 0, I'm going to get 2 random integers, one for the row. So this is random.nextInt num rows. So this is going to be a random number from 0 to 8, but not including 8. So this is going to be 0 to 7. And then let's do the same for the columns. So just as a reminder, we have 8 rows and 8 columns, and index starts at 0. So it's from 0 to 7. So now that I have 2 random numbers, I'm going to get the tile at the row number and column number. So mine tile is equal to board of RC. And what I'm going to do is make a check to see if mine list already has this tile. So if not mine list that contains tile, mine list dot add tile. And then I'm going to do mine left minus equal 1. Since we are getting 2 random numbers for row and columns, there is a chance that we might get the same 2 numbers twice. So let's say in our for loop we get 1, 1, and then the second time we get 1, 1 again. If I don't make this check, then we are going to get 1 mine less. So instead of 10 mines, we are actually going to get 9 mines. For that reason, we are using a while loop instead of a for loop, because if I use a for loop and do for int I equals 0, I less than mine count, we are going to run into a chance that we get the same 2 numbers twice. Okay? Alright, so now if I run our program, and I click on this tile, originally there was a mine here, but if I click on this, now you can see it's different. And I just clicked on a mine, so let's run it again. And if I click on this tile, and this one, you can see the layout is different for every single game. Now there's one more thing that I want to add, and if I scroll up, over here where it says Minesweeper in our text label, I'm going to add a colon, space, and do plus integer dot toString mine count. That way, when we start the game, on the text label, we can see how many mines there are. Alright, and you can see we have 10 mines. And if you remember, this tile had a mine, but if I click on this, it should not have a mine because we randomly generated our mines. And this as well, so let's keep playing. And here we get a mine, so game over. So if I rerun the program, and I click on this again, you can see the board is different. Alright, so there you go. And let's try to make sure that our game over for the winning condition works as well. So I'm going to actually try to play this game and win. Oh, that's not a good one. Let's try again. Alright. I'll have to be honest, I'm not very good at this game. I just know how to make the games. Alright, you know what? Let's just cheat a little bit. And what I'm going to do is, here I'm just going to set it to 1. Okay, so let's run a game. And there you go, mine's cleared. This is our 1 mine. Okay? And yeah, that's it for this tutorial. And if this tutorial worked for you, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want, you can keep on working on this game. For instance, you can see here that mine's cleared, or if I get game over, if I want to start a new game, I have to rerun the program. So what you might want to add is check to see if it's game over. If game over, you can add a button over here where if I click on the button, it will restart the game and generate the mines over again. And if you want to go up a level and make it more advanced, you can add an input box where it will take in a user input. So they would type in a value, so let's say 15, and click the restart button. Then it will create a new Minesweeper game with 15 mines. So yeah, this is up to you. I definitely encourage you to continue working on this game as this will help build your programming skills. But yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.